Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. This afternoon, we're looking at some tips and tricks for Sage 50 accounts. This session should last around 30 minutes, and hopefully today you'll find some quick fixes that might make your life a little bit easier when using the software. So my name's Jackie. I'll be taking you through this afternoon's session, and I am on my own, so if you do have any questions, please do bear with me, but you're more than welcome to send them across to me today. First of all, your microphone has been placed on mute, and that just means that you can't speak to me directly. However, if you do have any questions, please do use the questions panel, get your questions across. Where possible, I'll try and do a demonstration. If not, we'll try and get as many of them answered as possible. Now, there is a handout for today's session, so that can be accessed using the icon that looks like a document with the folded corner, and that will allow you to take a copy of the slides today as well. As always, there will be a follow-up email, and in that email there will be a link to register for future webinars and also to watch recordings. So we do link into many other webinars. There will be some recordings available on those if you wish to look at those as well. They're available to access in your own time, so sometimes on demand is better to fit around your diary, so there is the option there for you. So this is what we're going to cover today on today's session. So first of all, just taking a look at toolbars and colour schemes, ways to configure the software to make it a little bit more easy to use. We'll very briefly talk about the AI tools that are available now and give some hints as to what may be coming soon. And then we'll move on to the selection style that you can have in your software. We'll then show you the feature to hide deleted transactions, which is a great way of filtering out deleted transactions from certain windows in the software so that you're only viewing live data. Then we're going to move on to reports. So we're going to look at some favorites and default layouts. Then going to move on to function keys. So show you some of the keyboard function keys that you can use in the software, again, just to speed up your processing. Okay, so I am going to jump straight into a demonstration today. We do have 3 sets of data we're going to use for today's demonstration, but a lot of today is going to be in the demonstration data. So that's probably my first tip of the day, would be that if you want to try anything in the software and you're a bit wary about doing it in your live data, is to use the demonstration data. Now you can do this by logging into your software, selecting the option for demonstration data, and logging in with the username of manager and leave the password blank. Now what that will do is take you into a data set very similar to this one for stationery and computer mart. So it gives you a set of data that's already been created. Now bear with me, I'm just going to refresh the screen there. I'm not sure if it's quite feeding through. There we go. So you should see something very similar to what you've got on the screen there now if you log into your demonstration data, and this allows you to do some testing. It's not going to impact your live data at all, but it means that there's something to work with. You're not starting from scratch. So the first thing we're going to look at is the toolbars and the configuration of your screens. Now, anything you do in your software, if you're using this across a network or across remote data access, is going to be specific to you. Okay, so it's not going to impact your colleagues, which is a really key question we do get. So the first thing is I'm in customise at the moment. Okay, now as you can see along the top of the window there, we do have quite a few features. Now, not everyone uses all of these features. It might be you're responsible for a very specific area of customers. So there may be options along the top here that you maybe don't use, and it maybe hinders you trying to locate what you need on a regular basis. So what we can do is we can just configure that screen just to show what you need. So I'm just going to pick on this area here. This area here has a few options which aren't as regularly used. You may find that you use them all the time, but don't worry about that if that's the case. But things like credit charges, for example. So you might find that that just sort of gives you lots more options than you require. So what we can do on any of the icons that we don't wish to see is we can right click and we can untick them. So if I find credit charges here, What it then does is it hides it from this window. So you can start to do this across all of the ones that don't really apply to yourself there. And what that means is when you're coming into this window, you're coming into a far sort of more streamlined window, much easier to locate the icons or the areas that you need in the software. Now you're not deleting them, okay? So if you do want to bring them back, perfectly fine. You just right click on any of the icons and you can bring them back at the click of a button. So it's just hiding them from the window. The same with your modules down the left-hand side. If you're mainly on the customer side of things and you don't have anything to do with purchases, you might want to hide things like purchase orders. So again, we can right click on purchase orders, untick them and remove them from the list. It just means it's a far more streamlined version of the software if you remove anything related to your purchases. Again, to bring those back, nice and easy to do, right click on any of them and tick them again. They should reappear. There you go. The next thing you can do is you can actually configure your screens to show what you want it to show. So similar to the icons, I can configure this window to show more or less information. So this is the default view that comes with the software. So it shows you things like the account name, the contact name, the telephone number. There might be more information on there that you find is more relevant to you and your role. So again, what we can do is any of these headers in this sort of dark grey box here, I can right click on here and you can see what I can add. Okay, so any of these can be added to this window. So I'm just going to pop on email 1 because that's going to be quite useful. I might also want my payment terms, so I can pop on payment terms. Can't find that now. Just going to add a couple of other ones on here. So the aging period, so those that have got the 1 month aging on there, and also actually there is a scroll down on here, which is why we can't see things there. So I'm just going to add a couple more of those on there, just so you can see that I've added some additional columns onto this window. What's great about this though is that I can actually now use this as a method of getting that information out of the software. So not only can I add those columns to show me the information I wish to see, what I can also do is I can send it to Excel. So at a click of the button, everything that's on the screen here can be sent out to Excel. So this is quite a useful way of extracting data from your software. Let's just move it across onto another screen. So just bring this across briefly so you can see that. And you can see it's exported exactly what was on the screen into Excel for me. So quite often we get asked for what report to use to show certain information. And quite often what we suggest is just to configure this window and then export to Excel as a good starting point. You can also remove. So again, if I wanted to take things like the follow-up out, remove items, just right click and untick. And again, we're customizing the window there. Now what we also have is we've got the option in this top corner to change it from standard and chase det, which is why I wasn't quite seeing the option I looked for because I was in the chase det feature. But in standard, this is the standard list in the software. Chase det is a feature that we have in standard and professional, and it's just a way of filtering the screen, okay, for more of a chase det view. It's going to wait for it to refresh there. I think I've clicked on it a couple of times there, but we do have a session on chase det view on Monday. And we're going to go into far more detail around the chase det feature and what that chase det view can do for you. So in standard, you can see it gives me slightly different layout to what it does in chase det because this is geared more towards credit control, outstanding values, overdue balances, etc. So that's just another way you can filter it. Okay, moving on to the next topic. Got a few examples there for you. The next one is all around sort of themes and color themes in the software. So there is different themes within the software. We have light and we have dark, and this just allows you, if you prefer a sort of darker background in the software, you can switch that up. So by default, it is set to light. If you do prefer a darker background, then you can go into Tools, then Options, and change your color theme here. And that changes the sort of basic color that you see here, this light gray into a darker gray. What I'm going to do next though is I'm going to show you custom colors per module, and that's in the same place, so we'll show you the options you've got there. And these custom colors per module allow you to differentiate quite easily when you're in different modules. So again, it's best to probably demonstrate this one. I'm going to just pop back into my demonstration data. And to do this, we're going to go into Tools and then into Options. So a lot of what we're going to do is in here today. Just bring this across. So I'm going to start with the colors. So as I mentioned, you've got the color theme, you've got the light and dark, and you do have a white one, but the differentiation between light and white is very small. Okay, so you might not notice too much of a difference. But I do know people who prefer a sort of dark background on their phone. If that works better for you, then the dark feature would work. Now that will not apply until you've closed out the software and opened it back up again, which is why I'm not going to demonstrate that one today, just try and keep things flowing quite nicely today. But what I am going to show you is applying different colours to different modules. So what I'm just going to do is untick this box here. Now you can leave this as it is. If you find it works for you, that's great. But what this does is it allows you to sort of differentiate lines from one another. So I appreciate staring at a screen all day. Lines can start to merge by the end of the day as your eyes get tired, but also it helps you to identify different modules as well. So I know on technical support, quite a few of our technicians do this so that they can make sure they're in the right module at a given time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a few colours. So I've applied this one here to suppliers, which is a yellow. Just going to pop into nominal codes and use that little dropper to pick a colour. Now they are quite bright. What you can do, if you find that these are a bit too bright, you can find custom colours. Okay, so if you wanted something a bit more of a pastel or a lighter colour, then you've got the option to pick ones there. So I'm just going to add to custom colours. It's just appearing to use black at the moment. So I'm just going to use one of the standard ones to start off to demonstrate these for you. Now, when I apply these and I go into suppliers, what it looks like is this. So it shows you would start to recognize which colors, which in terms of which module, but it's easier to see the difference between the lines there because the alternate lines are different colors. In nominals, we applied the green. So that's perhaps a little bit bright for me, but as you can see, it helps you differentiate the lines. So that's in Tools and Options. Now, what you might notice on my data set there is I also have the grid line showing, okay? So if you do find that you want to have the lines without the colors, you can go into Ledgers and tick this box to show grid lines. Without it, just to show you what that looks like in Customers, sorry, I'll go into one that hasn't got colors applied. Just trying to find one. You can see there the lines again can start to merge, but if we add those grid lines back on by going into Tools and Options, just bring that back across. That just means when you're in these modules, you've got those actual grid lines. Again, it helps you to sort of identify different lines from each other. So that's another feature there that you can add into the software. Okay, so that's a little bit around the customization of the software. The next one I'm going to show you very briefly is the AI tool that's in the software. Now, this is something that's going to evolve over time. We have got Copilot coming soon, which is Copilot within the software. So what I would say is watch the space, because we will have webinars coming very soon showing you how Copilot can work in your software. But our first venture into AI tools was with the AI Report Finder. Now this came in version 30, so you might already be using this. You might have access to it and not realize that it's there. And that's why I've got a couple of different companies to show you this one on. What it will need you to do is to activate it first. Okay, so to activate it, all you need to do is to log into your Sage account and connect your data to your Sage account. And what it does is, rather than you searching for a report name, you can type in some natural language. And there's some examples on the screenshot there of the natural language. So rather than saying, show me a age debtors report, you can say, show me the outstanding balances for major clients. And it gives you some ideas on AI and everyday language searching as well. So there are some links to some articles that give you a bit more information on there. Now, what I'll just show you first is I'm going to show you a company which I haven't connected yet. Okay, so if I go into customers, I'm going to go into reports. So this is where your AI Report Finder is. So it just looks like your standard reports window, but you do have this option for Report Finder if you're on version 30 or above. And if you haven't got this set up, you'll get this option here to enable now. And that's where it will ask you to log into your Sage account. So if you've used things like bank feeds or remote data access or any of the options here, you will already have a Sage account that you can connect to. You might already be connected. Now that's one that's not connected. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of that one. I'm going to come into this one. This is my bank feeds data. So that has been connected up to my Sage account. So now when I go into reports, now bear in mind I'm in customers here, and go into report finder, this time it asks me what I'm looking for. So I am just going to type in recurring because this is one that I've demonstrated before. And what this does is it doesn't just look through customers, it looks through any report in the software. Now, if you're familiar with our reporting sessions, you'll know that we've got over 900 reports in the software. So it does that search for you rather than you having to go through each module looking for something that involves recurring items. So there's 25 reports that do something to do with recurring. So it filters them out hugely for you. And it is a really big call generator into technical support is, which report should I use? Now, as you can imagine, through 900 reports, that's not always an easy task to show you what's available. So here you go, you've got quite a few reports here. And some of these might not be obvious, but you can see within the description, when we run this particular one, we've got the option to include recurring or not. So it might not be that the report itself uses the word recurring, it might be more in the description that it's looking for. And what you can also do is feedback on the results so that the AI can continue to learn from your experiences as well. So as I mentioned, that is our first venture into AI, but we do have more coming, so please do keep an eye out for Copilot coming soon. Okay, I'm going to pop back to the software and we're going to go back to selection style in the software. Now, this is something that even now, after a few years of this being the case, we still have customers come through or they find out how to fix something that changed several years ago. And I believe I was still on technical support, so we're talking sort of maybe 5 or 6 years ago at this point. But this was the selection style. Okay, so originally for years, we just had one type of selection style in the software, which is the Sage selection style. Now, forgive me, I can't remember what version it was, but we did introduce the option to have either a Windows selection style or Sage selection style. And it just means that when you're selecting records, it works slightly differently in the software. So again, I'm going to show you where you can change this. So I'm going to pop back into the demonstration data. And again, we're in tools and options. Just bring this one across. And we're in the environment tab this time. So as you can see there, at the moment, I have got Windows selection style selected. So what that means is when I go into, for example, suppliers, when I want to highlight multiple records, what I have to do is use the Control key and click. Now what I can also do is if I wanted to highlight multiple records but they're all concurrent, so I can use the Shift. So I could select this one here, use the Shift key and select the last one I want to select, and then it highlights them all for me. And we can use things like the clear and the swap to swap over what we've got highlighted there as well. But what we used to have as default was the Sage selection style. I'm just going to bring this one back. So I'm going back into the environment. I'm going to change selection style to Sage. And this time in supplies, it allows me to highlight and just click. So it holds on to what I've sort of selected already. And this is what lots of people were used to, and then it reverted to the Windows selection style. So the option is still there, just not many people know that it is there to switch on. And this is great if I'm selecting multiple items, but they're not concurrent. It's really handy to sort of go down the list and just select the ones you need to. And again, from there, you can swap or you can clear. So that is the selection style. Okay, if you've got any questions, please do start getting those across. We're going to move on to the next feature, which is excluding deleted transactions from the software. So I'm just going to pop back onto the slides there. So this is a feature that you can switch on. It's not switched on by default, okay, and it allows you to hide deleted transactions from certain windows. So you can hide it from things like your activities and reports, but what you can't hide it from is the transactions ledger or the audit trail. What it means is if you're sorting through activity windows and you're looking at previous activity, it makes it far easier to see if you're not looking at loads of deleted transactions. It won't remove it from the audit trail because the audit trail has to be able to show you every single transaction, deleted or not, as a sort of history of what's gone on there. So again, I'm going to go back into the demonstration in demonstration data, and I'm just going to show you a record. So I'm going to go into customers, and what I'm going to do first, I'm going to turn off this awful color. So I'm going to go into tools and options, and I'm just going to show you how you can switch these colors off again if you don't want to use them. I'm just going to go into colors and I'm just going to say ignore colors. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to see what I'm showing you there. So back into customers, you can see now that's no longer applied. So I'm going into this customer here. And into the activity first of all. So I've got my activity window here in this upper box here. I'm just going to expand this slightly just so you can see there, but I've got some deleted transactions. Now in your case, you might have a far longer history of activity on here, and you probably have a few more deleted transactions than myself, okay? And it just might be easier for you if you're looking at that activity just to see those transactions that are actually live and relevant. So when we go into the transactions list, if we just look at transaction 1224, 1224, that's them here. Sorry, that's the transactions. 1224, there we go. Sorry, looking too far down. 1224, that's the 3 transactions there. So they're in my audit trail as well. Now what we can do, we can go into settings, company preferences, and into this one here for parameters. We can tick this box to exclude deleted transactions. When we go into the transactions ledger or the audit trail, as you can see, they are still live. They're still there, so we can see the history, we can see who amended them, we can see when they were amended. But when we go into the customer record, find the activity on there, they're no longer showing on here. So it's just making it that little bit easier for us to analyze the data within here because we're not looking at deleted transactions. And again, if we wanted to bring them back, it is as simple as unticking the box again. So quite a nice, easy fix there. Okay, so I am going to very briefly mention a feature, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on this particular one because we do have a dedicated session on filter and quick search coming up soon. But you do have the option to apply filters into your software again to make your life easier, to hide records you don't necessarily want to see, to filter it so you can export the data to Excel. So I'm just going to very briefly show you the filter feature. So we've got filter at the top of our customers list here. And this is essentially a way of filtering our list to hide or to show only certain records. In filter, we can apply a filter to meet certain criteria. So what I have done here is when you have the join, we only have one option, which is where, but you have a whole heap of options for the field that you can search for. So I'm just going to ask it to show me all of the customers where the balance isn't zero. Again, you can see that there's different options here for the condition. So it might be that you want it to be greater than a certain value or less than a certain value. I'm just going to say is not equal to and 0. And I'm just going to apply. And again, what that's done is it's just selected those that meet the criteria. So it's hidden all my customers with a 0 balance. It's now showing me only those customers who have a balance. And again, from here, I can send that data to Excel. So again, it makes it easier for me to start manipulating, sorting, searching through that data without having any of the records that are maybe old records you're no longer using. Okay, so quickly moving on, like I said, we've got a dedicated session on that one. We're going to cover how to do the filters. We're going to show you some different examples of filters and searches. I'm going to show you the quick search option and also wildcards. Wildcards are a great feature, but I don't want to spoil that too much for that session that's coming in a few weeks. Next one we're going to look at is into reports. So we're going to quickly look at your default reports in the software. So I'm just going to bring us up to speed here. So you have a few options in your software for printing, okay? And some of them give you the option to select a layout each time, but you do have the option for quick print and quick email. If you want to use these features, you need to tell it which layout to use, so it bypasses that step each time. So again, let's just pop into the demonstration. So what we need to do, if we are using invoices and credits, and we highlight, for example, an invoice, we can go to print, okay, and what that does is launch the option to select a layout that we want to use. But if we want to use the option for quick print or email, it will tell us to configure that layout if we haven't already done so. Now in this case it has, so it's exporting that one straight out to email because it knows exactly what layout to use. So that's been sent out to my email. Now to configure these though, what you need to do is go into settings, invoice and order defaults. And in here, we've got the option in the tabs at the top. Just come on to the other screen for quick print and email. So within here, we can tell it for invoices, use this layout. If it's a quotation, you might want it to use a different layout. And the same for email. And that means you can use those options at the top, reducing the number of clicks it takes for you to carry out a particular process. So it means you can highlight and go to quick print, for example, and that will immediately start to send that to your printer. Now, in my case, it's just sending it to file, just based on the way our printers are set up there. So it just bypasses that step there. So that is the default layout, but what you can also do is you can favorite reports and layouts as well. I'm going to just use customers as an example. I'm just going to pop into reports. So wherever you're given an option of layouts like this one here, you can select your favorites. And what you do is just tick the little star, and it means that all your favorites are held together in one place. So once you've built up your favorites, it just means that next time you log in, all your favorites will be here. No need to scroll through however many different options there are here on the left-hand side and then start looking for the report. They'll all be held in your favorites. So adding your favorites should save you a huge amount of time there. Okay, I'm going to very quickly move on to our final topic, which is the function keys in the software. Now, these function keys can help with several different things. So I'm just going to bring us back to the slides there. And there's some that we use on a regular basis. Okay, so things like F9, probably use on a regular basis to calculate the net of a value. F6 is used to copy the field above. But as you can see, there's quite a few function keys in use in the software there. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. These are great when you're doing batch entries, for example. So I'm just going to pop in a customer invoice as an example here, but just a batch invoice. So again, I'm just going to pop into demonstration data. Just going to pick this customer here and go to batch invoice. So as you can see, it populates with some of the data already. What I can do is I can pop in my gross value, and if I needed to calculate what the net tax split of that £100 would be, I can use this option here, or F9 on the keyboard, and that will allow us to work out the net tax split of that particular transaction. If you want to pay it in full, F3. So if you know that that invoice was already paid, you could do pay in full, and again it populates the amount and the pay date, which is today's date. So it picks up your processing date in the software. If I wanted to add an additional line, then I can do. If I want to copy the line above rather than scrolling again, I can do so. I might want to copy the cell above +1, so I might want this invoice to be the following day, which is great. And again, I can either copy from above, which I'll just do, and it just populates the values automatically. So again, it also helps prevent human error in some cases. If you're working through a list, so if you've got a batch list, for example, you might want to insert a line. It might be you've missed one. You're trying to keep things in order. So what you can do is use F7 or the insert row feature, and that inserts a row between the two there. So I selected the one underneath and then inserted the row. If you've made a mistake and need to remove a row, then the F8 key on your keyboard can help you to remove the row that you've highlighted as well. So function keys, again, if you're used to using your keyboard more than your mouse, could help you within the software. Now I'm going to move on to F11 and F12 here. Now F11 and F12 are configurable. Okay, so you can change these to any action that you want them to do. By default, the F11 key in your software, when you use that, will launch your control pad on your PC. And the F12 will open report design, and that's what happens by default. Okay, but you can tell it to do something else, but you just need to use the right command for that. Now this is where I normally say if you want to give it a go, you're more than welcome to. We normally have an example that we try, which is to pop in a link to an article. Now, when you do make this change, you need to use a command prompt first. So you do need to type in cmd space /c space, the word start, and then what you want it to launch. So in this case here, I'm going to get my F11 to open up this web page here, which is a web page for our tax code finder article. So I'm going to copy this very quickly into the chat for you in case you do want to have a go while we're on today. So bear with me 1 second while I just pause the screen and get this into the chat for you, and then I'm going to show you how you can do it. so that you can walk through with me if you want to do so. No pressure if you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to copy this into the chat. So if you do want to take an opportunity to have a go, you can copy the whole thing that I've popped into the chat, including the CMD part at the beginning. And what you'll need to do is go into your software, into Tools, into Options. Just wait for that to load. And it's in the Environment tab. And if you paste what I've popped into the chat into either your F11 or your F12 and save, what that should do is it should launch our tax code finder article. So I'm just going to use it on mine. So I'm just going to do F11. And on my other screen, you can see it's just launched the tax code finder article. So this could be any web page of your choice. It might be the HMRC web page. So something that's relevant to you, that's going to help you out, something you use on a regular basis. We've used this as an example because when you're processing transactions, you might just think, I need some help with a tax code here. I'll use F11. That can launch the tax code finder for me. Now, you don't have to, you can leave it as it was to open Report Designer or the control panel. That's perfectly fine, but this is just an option for you again to give you quick access to a useful document in the software. If you want to have a go, by all means do let me know if you've tried it and it's worked in the chat. That's great. But I am going to move on to our summary. Lots to squeeze in today. So first of all, we've shown you today a few ways to try and make processing easier and a little bit more efficient in your software. Remember, you can configure the colors and the different modules to help you navigate your software easier. You can also alter the screens just to show the tasks that you need to carry out, making them easier to locate when you're in the software. Filters and sorts can be applied to all of the modules to display just the data that you need to work with on a day-to-day basis. And we've also mentioned those function keys that can help speed up processing in those batch processing windows, but also in general day-to-day processing if you're using that F11 function. Okay, so again, this is a great opportunity. If you've got any questions, please do get those across to us. I'm just going to again go back through those steps. I think my screen was frozen there again, so I'm just going to show you again where you can add those features in. So I'm just going to go back into Tools and Options, and I was in the Environment tab, and this is where I copied the command in if you wanted to. And like I say, you just need this part here and then any web page, and it will open any web page you wish. It doesn't have to be a Sage one, it can be HMRC or anything else that's useful to you. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick look at the questions there. So there was one, can you check when you last used a customer or a supplier rather than open each one individually before you put them as inactive? Now, I might need to have a look into that because I'm sure there was a report on one of them. In Customise, if you're using the invoicing feature, I believe you can put on the last invoice date. Used to be on there, so I might need to have a look into that one and maybe pop back to you on that one. Let's have a quick look on there. Yeah, we go. Last invoice. So if you're using the invoice feature, then you can use that last invoice option. And then it adds that column there so you can see when they were last used. If you're just using batch invoicing, that won't update in the same way there. But I might have a quick look into reports shortly after today's session, just pop back to you on that one so I can give you some advice on that one. So please just check your emails shortly after today's session. Okay, so just going to show you the upcoming webinars. So if you go to sage.co.uk/webinars, that will take you to our webinars page that looks a little bit like this. Payroll year end is in full swing now. So if you do have a colleague or you are yourself responsible for payroll, we've got our payroll year end sessions available on this tab here. We've got quite a few dates available, but we are doing some dedicated sessions on corrections, national insurance, starters and leavers, and also P60s this year. So they're brand new sessions. In terms of accounts, if you click on the live option here, you can see our upcoming sessions. We've got some live sessions on management reports, which we are going to badge in April. And also you can see our upcoming sessions. So we've got year end on Thursday, as well as analysis fields. So that's another great tip, is to start using analysis fields more. So again, we didn't cover it today because it's a session in its own right, but we also have the filter and quick search session that I mentioned there. So that's looking to be next Wednesday and also the following week on Thursday. So please do have a look. But like I say, our management report is proving very popular already. An opportunity for you to get a badge that we can upload to our credible software, and you can start sharing that with your colleagues, clients, wherever you like. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the session now. So thank you very much for joining us today. Like I say, there's one outstanding question that I will just reach out to shortly after today's session there. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us today. Take care, and we will see you on another session really soon. But bye for now.